You're about to hear something uncomfortable. Not loud. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Real psychological destruction rarely looks like warfare. It looks like silence, distance, and the slow unraveling of a person who has spent their entire life escaping themselves. People think the only way to hurt a narcissist is to confront them, expose them, or fight them. But the truth is far more unsettling. A narcissist isn't destroyed by what you do to them. They are destroyed by what happens when you stop doing anything at all. Carl Jung warned that the parts of ourselves we refuse to face don't disappear. They grow teeth in the dark. And for the narcissist, that darkness eventually becomes a prison cell. They've built a false self so carefully, so obsessively, that the slightest crack in it feels like death. Today, we are not chasing revenge. We are tracing a collapse, one that begins quietly, the moment you stop feeding the illusion. There are 4 psychological maneuvers that dismantle a narcissist from the inside out. They are not aggressive. They are not cruel. They are simply the natural consequences of a life constructed around deception and emotional dependency. Each step removes a pillar holding up the identity they believe is unbreakable. When the pillars fall, they are left alone with what they fear most, their own reflection. This isn't punishment. This is gravity. So take a breath. Keep your mind clear. And understand that every one of these steps begins not with hurting them, but with reclaiming yourself. The first way begins where every narcissistic dynamic truly lives, in attention. People misunderstand control. They think it's about money, decisions, authority. But in narcissistic psychology, the true currency is psychological centrality. The narcissist survives by occupying the center of your inner world, your thoughts, your anticipation, your emotional weather. Jung describes psychic energy as the fuel that animates our inner life, the force that gives meaning to our choices, our desires, our attachments. For as long as you orbit the narcissist, that life force is directed outward, away from yourself, into someone who cannot exist without it. You become their emotional power grid. Their moods determine your day. Their silence sends you spiraling. Their approval becomes oxygen. This isn't love. It's captivity disguised as devotion. So the first way to psychologically suffocate a narcissist is not confrontation, not anger, not withdrawal and rage, but the quiet retrieval of your psychic center. You stop organizing your internal world around them. This doesn't show up as rebellion. It shows up as stillness. Instead of bracing when they enter the room, you stay anchored in your own body. Instead of rehearsing conversations in your head, you return your mind to your present moment. Instead of internalizing their chaos, you let it remain where it belongs, inside them. At first, they sense it the way an addict senses distance from their supplier. They test you. They provoke you. They try to ignite the emotional spark they once controlled. But nothing inside you flares. Not because you're numb, but because you are no longer emotionally enlisted. This is not a performance. Narcissists can smell pretense. They know when your silence is filled with tension, longing, or rage. They can taste the emotional charge in a room like a predator smells blood and water. So this shift must be internal. It requires grief for the fantasy of who you hoped they were. Grief for the version of love you kept trying to rescue. Jung wrote that we often fall in love not with the person in front of us, but with a projection of our own longing. When you finally allow that illusion to die, indifference does not come from bitterness. It comes from truth. And that truth removes the throne they were never entitled to sit on. The narcissist feels this loss immediately. Their nervous system strains without the reflection they used to anchor their sense of self. They escalate. They perform. They accuse. They plead. But the echo they once relied on is gone. You aren't resisting them. You aren't engaging them. You're simply no longer inside their psychological ecosystem. And without you there to stabilize their identity, the structure begins to tremble. The second way does not attack their ego, it dismantles the mythology wrapped around it. The narcissist doesn't just wear a persona. They live inside it. Their story is holy to them. The hero. The martyr. The genius. The misunderstood victim. They cling to it because the alternative is unbearable, an encounter with shame they have buried since childhood. Jung called the shadow the part of the psyche we refuse to acknowledge, the rejected traits, the disowned fears, the fragility sealed away beneath pride. The narcissist treats that shadow like a monster sealed behind a wall. Their persona exists to keep the wall standing. You don't break that wall by shouting at it. Rage gives them fuel. Accusations give them escape routes. They twist your anger into proof that they are the true victim. The illusion survives as long as you're emotional. So instead, you introduce something far more destabilizing than confrontation: reality. Neutral. Calm. Undramatic reality. Not as an argument. Not as a weapon. Simply as a mirror. Small statements of truth that do not beg to be believed. A quiet refusal to support the mythology. They say they are always sacrificial, yet you recall the times they abandoned you in silence. They boast about success, and you gently reference the parts they omitted. You don't mock them. You don't attack them. You don't lecture them. You just refuse to enter the fantasy. And in that refusal, the mask trembles. Because a narcissist can fight hostility. But they cannot fight indifference to illusion. Cognitive dissonance fractures their emotional equilibrium. Two realities collide, the inner myth and the external truth. They scramble to resolve it the only way they know how: rage, denial, grandiosity, deflection. But your neutrality gives them nothing to push against. There is no tug of war. Only their story, collapsing under the weight of its own contradictions. This is when the third movement begins, not in them, but in you. Jung called it individuation, the process of becoming internally whole rather than externally defined. Narcissistic dynamics survive by fusing identities. They convince you that your worth is evaluated through their eyes. Your mistakes are recorded in their ledger. Your value rises and falls based on their approval. When you individuate, you take back authorship of your story. You stop being their emotional extension. You stop handing them the authority to define your character. This shift is not loud. It's not defiant. It's grounded. You pursue interests that once threatened them. You make decisions without announcing them. You recognize traits you projected onto them as your own strengths finally returning home. The admiration you once gave away becomes self-recognition. The emotional dependency dissolves into self-trust. And suddenly, they can no longer locate the entry points where manipulation once slipped through. Their insults slide off because they no longer speak to your fears. Their guilt no longer hooks because you no longer believe you owe them absolution. Their anger echoes in a room that no longer answers back. You're not cold. You're present. You're not unkind. You're sovereign. And sovereignty is the one thing a narcissist cannot inhabit or control. To them, this feels like betrayal. In truth, it is rebirth. Your life expands as theirs contracts. The power imbalance reverses without a word spoken. They are no longer the center, and for a psyche built on dominance, irrelevance is annihilation. But the most devastating blow arrives in the fourth movement, when you cut the line they depend on more than anything else: supply. Narcissistic supply is not praise. It is oxygen. It is the confirmation that their persona is still intact, that they still have pull, that their presence still generates reaction. Positive or negative doesn't matter. Love, fear, admiration, outrage, all of it feeds the same fragile system. Reaction equals existence. So the final way to psychologically collapse a narcissist is not distance alone, but emotional disappearance. You don't starve them out through silence filled with resentment. You starve them through neutrality filled with peace. You stop being the mirror. You stop being the audience. You stop being the container for what they refuse to feel. They attempt to provoke you, and your mind stays steady. They attempt to charm you, and you register it as behavior, not meaning. They drop bait, and you watch it fall through empty air. Not cruelly. Not mockingly. Just, without participation. And in that stillness, the narcissist encounters the one experience they cannot tolerate: themselves. This is where narcissistic mortification emerges, the inner collapse that happens when projection fails and the shadow returns home. Every insecurity they threw into you rebounds. Every fear they blamed on you circles back. The shame they've outrun their entire life floods inward because there is nowhere left to send it. They pace. They spiral. They scramble for a new host. Some succeed. Others don't. But in the space between losing you and finding another mirror, they enter a psychological winter they are not built to survive. This is not revenge. It is consequence. A system built on illusion collapses when reality stops holding it up. A personality that feeds on others decays when the host detaches. You do not destroy the narcissist. You simply stop carrying the weight they refused to bear. And here's the hardest truth: the final torture was never meant for them. It was meant for you. Because every step in this process requires courage. Courage to grieve the fantasy. Courage to face your own projections. Courage to stop shrinking so someone else can feel tall. Jung believed that healing is not the removal of pain, but the integration of truth. When you withdraw attention, stand in reality, become whole, and refuse to be a vessel for someone else's emptiness, you are not inflicting suffering. You are stepping out of a story you were never meant to live inside. The narcissist will search for a new stage, a new audience, a new reflection to animate their mask. But for you, something entirely different begins: the quiet return of your own life. Your mind. Your voice. Your future. Not loud. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Just real. If you're listening to this and something inside you recognizes the shift, not the anger, not the heartbreak, but the strange calm that comes when illusion finally dissolves, then you already know the story is ending. Not theirs. Yours with them. And the most powerful thing you can do now is keep walking.